Hi, everyone, and thanks for checking out this movie review. So, today we'll be continuing with my current horror franchise for the month of September. And that's the Halloween franchise. And today we'll be taking a look at the sixth film in the Halloween franchise, which is Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers, or Halloween 6, if you will. And this is the theatrical cut. I don't have the producer's cut. So, this review will be based on the theatrical cut of the movie. So, let's just kind of get started with the setup and the premise and the cast of the movie, all that good stuff, and then I'll get into my thoughts and review of it, which will contain spoilers. So, Halloween: The Curse of Michael Myers is a 1995 American slasher film directed by Joe Chappelle and written by Daniel Farrens. The film stars Donald Pleasance in his final film appearance, Paul Rudd, and Marianne Hagen. It is the sixth installment of the Halloween film series and concludes the Thorn trilogy story arc that was established in Halloween 4. So basically, 6 years after the events of Halloween 5, the plot follows Michael Myers as he stalks the Strode family, who are cousins of Laurie Strode, in order to kill his last surviving relatives, while Dr. Sam Loomis pursues him once more. The film also reveals the source of Michael's immortality and his drive to kill. So we open on October 31st, 1989. Michael Myers and his niece Jamie Lloyd are abducted from the Haddonfield police station by the man in black and his two henchmen. 6 years later, on October 30th, 1995, Jamie gives birth to a baby, and the man in black, revealed to be the leader of a druid like cult, takes the child away. Later, a midwife helps Jamie escape with her baby, but she is killed by Michael. Jamie and her baby flee to a stolen pickup truck with Michael in pursuit. Meanwhile, Dr. Sam Loomis has retired and moved to a cabin on the outskirts of Haddonfield where he lives as a hermit. He is visited by his friend, Dr. Terrence Wynn, the chief administrator of the Smiths Grove Sanitarium, where Michael has been incarcerated since he was a boy. Wynn asks Loomis to return to Smiths Grove. They overhear Jamie's pleas for help on a local radio station when he makes a call to Loom when she makes a call to Loomis, only to be ignored by the radio DJ Barry Sims. Michael catches up with Jamie and she crashes the truck into an old barn. He kills Jamie, but finds that her baby is not in the truck. In Haddonfield, Tommy Doyle, whom Laurie Strode babysat in 1978, now lives in a boarding house run by Mrs. Blankenship. Tommy is a recluse individual who has become obsessed with finding the truth behind Michael's motives. The dysfunctional family living in the Myers house across the street are relatives of the Strode family. Kara Strode, her 6-year-old son Danny, her teenage brother Tim, caring mother Deborah, and abusive father John. Tommy finds Jamie's baby at the bus station, takes him into his care, and names him Stephen. And then the movie just kind of goes on from there. You can probably imagine that Michael stalks his family and Tommy Doyle, and if that setup and premise sounds pretty convoluted, long, and kind of messy, that describes the movie pretty well. Then the cast of this movie, of course, Donald Pleasance is Dr. Sam Loomis, Paul Rudd is Tommy Doyle, Marianne Hagen is Kara Strode, Mitch Ryan is Dr. Terrence Wynn, George P. Wilbur as Michael Myers, and J.C. Brandy as Jamie Lloyd in this movie. So yeah, that's a mouthful, huh? Halloween: The Curse of Michael Myers from 1995. This is a very mixed bag kind of movie. Um, I do like it a bit more than I did the previous film, but that's not necessarily high praise. There's some good things about it, but definitely some things I don't like about it. So let's just get into it. So we'll start with the pros because it's always good to start with the good stuff. Michael Myers is the biggest pro in this movie. After a couple of movies where he was below par, in my opinion, he's back to being good Michael Myers, as I call him, with a good mask again for the first time since Halloween 2, in my opinion. It just goes to show you that you don't need the Shatner mask to be able to make a good, effective Michael Myers mask. Unfortunately, this is really the only movie. Well, I haven't seen all of them, but going forward as well, other than the first two movies, this is really the only good one I've seen so far in all of these Halloween sequels. But not only that, George P. Wilbur, who also played Michael Myers in Part 4, does a much better job here. I like his portrayal better in this movie. Michael himself is just more brutal. The most brutal he's been in any movie is definitely in Part 6 here. But yeah, very good portrayal by George P. Wilbur of Myers. I really like this Michael Myers. He's kind of back on form, back on point, I should say, in this movie for the first time in a few. I also got to talk about the atmosphere in this movie. If you like Halloween, this might be the most atmospheric Halloween movie that there is. In some ways, even more so than the original. It's just got so much atmosphere, so much Halloween going on. As far as like the town's got a Halloween festival going on in the background, different scenes. The movie's also got a dark and sinister tone to it, though. Um, you don't have the like the last movie with the clownish cops and all that stuff. You don't have any of that. It's they play it pretty serious, a serious tone. It works for the most part, not entirely, but it's also got a very dark look to it, which is great. Which brings me into my next pro, which is cinematography and camera work. It's very well done. It's a well shot, good looking movie. It's shot well enough where it has a very unique and different feel than the previous films, the previous sequels. Yeah, and it really works to the benefit of a Halloween movie. It's just a good looking Halloween movie, taking the story out of it, just from a Halloween standpoint, very atmospheric and very good looking. Very shot very well with good cinematography. Also, I really like the score of this movie, using more of an electric guitar type of Halloween theme, where they take the Halloween theme and they've kind of adjusted it and changed it in various sequels throughout the years. In this movie, it's kind of electric guitar like, which really works for this movie because this is a more modern movie. The last movie was in '89. This is mid '90s now, so it kind of works to change the tone a little bit, and the score. And they do that with this movie. I think the score definitely is effective and adds to the movie. Um, the kills are. I talked about Myers being brutal in this movie. Obviously that's going to mean the kills are much more brutal and also creative in this movie. I mean, we get an exploding head scene in the movie, which is pretty cool. And then a scene towards the end where Michael's just taking out doctors and nurses, probably about six or eight of them in a room. That's a very effective sequence. It's kind of hard to see too much of what's going on because there's a lot of flashing, dark and light, and so we don't see exactly, but we get a lot of blood splatters, and it's just a very effective scene that I really enjoy. But yeah, the kills, they're gory, they're brutal, they're violent. So if that's your jam, you're definitely gonna like that part of this movie. I'm gonna talk about Donald Pleasance. I mean, I don't think this is his best performance as Dr. Sam Loomis, but part of that's because he's just not in the movie that much. At least the theatrical version that I watched. Unfortunately, as many people know, this was the last movie that he did. He died during the production of this movie. So he actually never got to see this movie. But he offers a nice presence on screen to be in this movie. And that you're definitely glad that he's here, even though he doesn't do a lot. He doesn't confront Michael a whole lot. And especially he's back the way he should be. He's the Dr. Sam Loomis from the first two movies and even part four, as opposed to the overbearing, just crazy nut job that he was in part five. Um, so yeah, it's very good to have his presence back in this movie. Like I said, his last not only his last Halloween movie appearance, but his last movie period. But overall, I have to say I find well, it's a very flawed movie. I do find between the atmosphere and Myers and the kills entertaining enough to watch it at Halloween time. It's a good atmospheric Halloween movie to put on during the month of October. But now we got to get into the cons. This movie's just a mess. You can tell watching it that it was just not. It's not a very tight, cohesive, well edited movie, and that's because, as most people know, there's like three different cuts of this movie. Well, actually, two that were made, but the director had a different vision in mind for this movie. The producer had a different vision in mind for this movie, and the studio, Dimension Films, had a different vision in mind for this movie. And as a result, we get a very rough final product in terms of it's just not a well put together tight movie that fills all the gaps. There's a lot of misses here, and it's because of the fact that it's just kind of all over the place with the different cuts. I have seen the producer's cut. I don't own it. I saw it once. It's kind of a different movie, but in some ways I don't like it as well because it's more about the cult, which is, as you'll see as I get into it next, isn't my favorite thing, and it's got less of the brutal kills by Myers, but it's kind of six of one, half dozen of the others. I don't think either movie's a great movie. They're both very flawed. They have some pros here and some cons there on both sides, and yeah, it's just very messy and very not cohesive movie though. Either way you go, and talking about the theatrical view, that's the theatrical cut. That's definitely the case. The whole story of the cult of Thorn, they kind of got into it. They touched on it briefly in the fourth movie, more heavily in the fifth movie, but just kind of here and there. This movie, it's balls to the walls with it. It's all about the Thorn of Cult, even in or the Cult of Thorn, I should say, even in the theatrical cut. I know they don't go into it as much where the movie's all a Cult of Thorn like it is in the producer's cut, but I don't like it. That's my problem with these Halloween movies. They explain way too much about why Michael does what he does. They're answering questions that I never asked. They're answering questions that, for me, I never asked to be answered, basically, if that makes sense. And I dare say that a lot of other people that are fans of the original movie is in the same boat. I mean, why are you telling me things I'm not asking for? And they just do it more and more as these movies go on. In this movie, it's full blown. This is why he's invincible. He's part of this cult, and get out of here with all that stuff. I don't need that. I'm just not interested in the idea, not for Michael Myers. The fact that anybody can control Michael and that he stops when these stones are lined up, or I guess in the producer's cut, it's even worse because he's actually standing there with the man in black and all the other cultists. And Michael Myers just doesn't do that. This is hashtag not my Michael. And, you know, it's it's silly, it's ridiculous. I don't like anything about it. Got to talk also about Jamie Lloyd, who's first of all not played by Danielle Harris. Most people probably know the story to that. Danielle Harris wanted to do the film, but they wanted to give her like $1.50 for a few days' work to do it. Not literally, but basically, they wanted to cut her salary down to nothing. And basically, the biggest problem was they wanted to treat her just like any other character in the movie or any other character in this franchise. And Danielle Harris has done enough at this point in the franchise. She's not just any other character. She should have been given her proper due. They effed up on that. I don't blame Danielle Harris at all for not coming back. The reasons make sense to me. Not only did you not want to pay her anything, but you basically you treated the character like crap. I mean, you treated it like a throwaway character, which is the next con that I have with this movie. Well, okay, so Danielle Harris isn't playing Jamie Lloyd, but you still have Jamie Lloyd, who's next to Laurie Strode, is probably the second biggest character in this movie, aside from Michael and Loomis. I'll say fourth, but I mean, as far as like a final girl or, you know what I mean, along those lines, Jamie is killed so quickly in this movie and disrespectfully. They basically act like her character was inconsequential to this franchise, which, as I said, is part of why Danielle Harris didn't want to play her because of the ideas they had and the direction that they took, as well as the fact they didn't want to pay her to play that character in a crappy movie and a crappy direction that they went with it. So it's just all a mess when it comes to the Jamie Lloyd character. The other characters in this movie are bad. You don't care about any of them. The Strode families, most of them are bland, like Kara Strode, who's kind of a main character played by Marianne Hagen. She doesn't do too bad, but there's just nothing to her character. She's got a son, and that's about it. And her brother and his girlfriend are bland and very stereotypical, especially the parents. You have the overbearing, abusive father and the mother who's afraid to say anything. And yeah, just and then bad acting for the most part. And unfortunately for all you Paul Rudd fans, I got to bring this up. I like Paul Rudd. I think he's good in comedies, and even as Ant Man, I think he works well as that character in those movies. But at this time in 1995, he was not a good actor, and it shows in this movie. He plays Tommy Doyle very awkwardly, just very badly, very badly acted role by Paul Rudd here. And my final con, to me, the theatrical version I'm speaking for. I can't speak to the producer's cut as much, but the ending is unsatisfactory to me. I mean, they have a nice scene towards the end, a lot of tension and suspense and build up, but then basically Tommy Doyle beats him with a crowbar, and we for some reason we get like green slime that comes out of Myers. I Nobody's ever explained what the hell that's supposed to mean. Um, and then it just cuts to them in a van leaving, and Loomis standing there. I do kind of like that scene where you kind of the camera kind of focuses in on Loomis as he's standing in front of the hospital there. That kind of felt fitting, especially the fact that it was the last time we'd ever see him on screen. So I thought that was a fairly decent tribute, I guess. But then we don't really get anything. You just hear him screaming, and they cut down to Michael Myers' mask just being there on the floor without the body, which obviously we know Myers escaped, and from Loomis's screams, he's probably being attacked and killed by Myers. Is probably the way I view it. But they don't show anything, and that's again, it goes back to all the editing and the cuts and everything, and so you just hear them screaming, and they cut to a jack o' lantern, a lit up jack o' lantern in front of the Myers house again. And yeah, it's just this movie's a mess. It really is. But as I said before, I do find it entertaining enough that I'm not going to totally crap on it either, like some other movies in this franchise. Michael Myers saves it, the kills save it, and the atmosphere, the Halloween atmosphere, and the tone saves it. So, but I'm going to go ahead and give it a 7 out of 10. It's a very mixed bag for me, a very mixed bag movie. 7 out of 10 is my rating, though. Go ahead and give me your thoughts down below, guys. What you think of the Curse of Michael Myers, the theatrical cut, and also you can comment on the producer's cut, which I only saw once many years ago in a bootleg version, so I don't remember a whole lot about it. Tell me what version you prefer. I do remember not thinking that the producer's cut was that much better. It was just different. In some ways worse, and a couple ways better. But go ahead and comment down below. Like this video, hit the little notification bell for coming up for videos coming up that'll drop, as well as please subscribe to my channel to see future videos regarding this franchise, the ranking video at the end of the month, as well as my 31 Days of Horror coming up in October, and other movie reviews. So thank you for watching this review. Stay scared. Bye.